Morning and welcome everybody to the Knowledge Mine. I'm delighted that we have two world-class individuals who have very generously agreed to come on board and share the wealth of knowledge that they have. And I would like to begin by thanking the golf guru, Jesse Grewal, and his wonderful student, Shubhankar Sharma, this young talent who's taken the golfing world by storm. And we're looking forward to learning a lot from you both today. How the conversation will flow is that we'll have a very quick round of introductions. They'll tell us a little bit about themselves. We're going to keep that short, but then we're going to get to the meat of the conversation, which is going to be about what it takes to develop world class. Then they'll share a little bit about their experiences on the world stage, the majors, and we'll then open up the floor to question and answers from the audience. So please let your questions flow, let them come in through the chat box, and I'll try and weave them into the conversation if I can, or we'll ask them at the end. So let's start. And let me start by giving you a very brief introduction to both these individuals we have today. Jesse, as you know, is one of the finest golf coaches in the country today, and he has trained some of the finest talents that's emerging in India. Vietnam. He's the director of the National Golf Academy. And the depth of understanding, the clarity, all that is very, very evident when you watch some of his videos on which he's done recently with Ajit Bhalotia. My request is for all of you to watch them. You learn a lot. Some of the mics are still on. Could I request you all to just make sure your mics are switched off, please? Thank you. Shubhankar, I think we've read enough about him. This young man burst into the Indian golfing scene. He's got 11 international victories. And in 2018, he was the Order of Merit leader on the Asian Tour. He received the Rookie of the Tour award on the European Tour. World ranking of 64. And he's still only 23 years old. So there's a lot more to come. All right, let's begin. Jesse, we'll start with you. Thanks once again for being online. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting us, Digraj. It's a pleasure being here.
And thank you. So Jesse, tell me a little bit about your journey from player to coach. How did you go about training yourself to become a better coach? And we'll take it from there.
Actually, the journey from player to coach was accidental. I was working in the tea gardens, and I left in '87 after we played golf in college. There was no tour that time, and so I've been playing golf now for 46 years. So it's been a long time. We started with the small ball. I mean, you would remember that. So it's been a long journey. Anyway, when we came back in '88, I turned pro, played a little bit in the northern tournaments, and somebody was watching me practice and said, "Can you give me a lesson?" And I said, "Look, I don't know how to give a lesson. We just try." So I started explaining things to him, and somebody watching said, "Why don't you do that for me also?" And it actually started like that. It actually started by plan to teach, and slowly I was running a business, and I started doing part-time teaching in the mornings. And from there, some juniors approached me, and there was Irina, and there was Gurbaz, and then later there was Rahul Bakshi, Ajitesh, and Gaganjeet Bullard. So I started doing camps for the Punjab Golf Association. I was starting the junior training program for Chandigarh. I hadn't got trained till then at all. So it was just out of my kind of desire to teach, to help people, and just reading some of the old stuff in golf. And I think that the old stuff's very important because if you don't know where you're coming from, you don't know where you're going. And I think the evolution of golf, a lot of people today think that with the latest technology, they know everything. But I think that you have to link it to how golf was learned from the beginning. And for me, that the evolution is a hugely important part. And I mean, before I go into the thing, I think it's sort of guided me also because people, today you will come to that later in your talk about the TrackMan and stuff like that. But people think that what's new, what's now current, something different to what it was old. In the year 1687, there was a kid in England called Thomas Kincaid, and he wrote in a diary that during the swing the arms do very little. It's the body rotation which creates a golf swing, and the arms only transfer the movement of the body into the club. So this is something which is 330 years old. So people think that that's the modern golf swing. It was always there. So I learned to teach from books like Harvey Penick's Little Red Book, and from John Jacobs and stuff like that. And in 1998, are you there, Digraj? I can't see your image on the screen.
Yeah.
So in
Absolutely.
1998, Donato used to come to Chandigarh. He had Amandeep Johal and Harpreet Kaur as the students, and we got to meet him. And he sent one of his star students, Alessio, to run a kids camp here. And that's the time I approached Alessio, and a lot of the kids were guys who I was coaching. And I said that, look, I want to see how you work on these students. And that's when I learned how to use a video and learned all the stuff. And then Donato was a big influence. He sort of got us into a method of learning, of not a particular method of coaching, but he sort of taught us how things were done in Italy and what the body does and what the club does in the swing plane, and everything came from there. And that's how we actually got into we sort of requested him to help us start the National Golf Academy, which was around 2000. He ran some camps in India, and that's how we got into sort of creating a method which would help other teaching pros also in India to get better. So we've been part of the teaching staff from probably 2003 onwards. And 2004 was the first course, and then by 2008 we had the National Golf Academy in Chandigarh, and it's been a journey where it's been some teaching, some learning, and we've been been going for courses regularly to keep improving the way I teach. And so it's been a long journey, and it's 30 years now since I started teaching. I started teaching in 1990.
That's wonderful. I think what you said about, that it has to begin from the past. You need to understand it, link it together to know how you're going forward. Makes a lot of sense. So tell me, just 1 second.
There are many swing philosophies out there, and what swing philosophy would you say that you follow? I mean, if there is any specific philosophy.
I think I'm like so the few guys who have influenced me, or the few great teachers who've influenced me. One was John Jacobs. John Jacobs said that you employ any method you want, as long as it's repeatable and as long as it creates the perfect impact. So it's not really necessarily a particular style you follow. In fact, I wouldn't say that there is a role model in a golf swing. There are so many great players, and they all have had different golf swings, and you've had some strange golf swings too, right? And they have even the strange golf swings are winners, and they have created perfect impact every time. So the question is, it's all about how you repeat a movement pattern, and not really exactly, positions and a particular type of a golf swing. And we also know that, certain things are more important, and it's been sort of reinforced with TrackMan that the face is more important. But, again, it's again something which I would like to say is that when TrackMan came about, everybody started saying that the old ball flight laws were wrong, and that, that the old ball flight laws said that the path sends the ball and the face bends the ball and things like that. I don't think so. In fact, there's a book by Alistair Cochran in years back, it's more than 50 years back, which said that the face was the most important part of the starting direction of the shot. So nothing has changed in golf. Nothing will ever change. When you call something a law, like a ball flight law, how can a law change? Can the laws of gravity change? So they can't change. So they've always been there, and it's people sort of twist it and say that this is the way it is now, but it can't be different to what it was in the past. When Peter Thompson's scores at St. Andrews are the same as what they are now, and that golf course hasn't changed because it's historical, and so it's not changed as much as people think it's changed.
Very true, and well said at that. So tell me, Jesse, when you start working with students, what are the key things that you want to make sure are instilled in them to become good players?
So, if you want to become a player, I mean, let's start with a journey from a junior probably, and let's say that the person I'll talk about the junior part kind of later if we are into the junior thing or advice to juniors. But I think the person must learn to play. Now, learn to play is the first thing. Before we start talking about what they do, they have to learn to play, which is it's like experiential learning. You shouldn't be taught to play. There is a self-learning which a person must start when they start golf. They should experiment. They should have feedback of if I open the face, this is what will happen to the ball. If I close the face, they should have to be taught these things. They should learn to play. Once you've got that, you've sort of got an idea. It's like this is something.
Very nice.
In our journey, we've Gurbaz and me did a lot of work on clubs, and we sort of worked on this thing called proprioception. That apart from your eyes, there is a lot more which comes back. There's feedback from the sound of the shot. There's feedback from the feel. So there's a lot of stuff which you must learn in the beginning, because in today's generation, everybody is just looking. They're only using their eyes. They're not sensing the other stuff. In fact, if you look at people, when they look at somebody's clothes, that they talk about how good it looks, and how good food looks on a plate. Until you taste it, you don't know how good it looks. Looking is the visual is not the most important part. So they must get feedback. They must understand from experience what's happening. Then they become to understand what they have to practice, and then they go into training and then developing an ideology or a method. Right after they've learned to play, they should get into this, and then understanding their strengths and their weaknesses. There's some movements they can do. There's some movements they can't do. They figure out for themselves what's happening. Once they've done that, they only, because most people practice only what they enjoy. They think that they practice the stuff which is necessary, but actually they practice, most of the time is spent on what they enjoy, because it gives them satisfaction. So they actually ignore what is necessary to do. So if a guy, you see people on the golf course who don't know how to pitch, and they'll just try and avoid it and chip most of the time, and they will not go and do pitching practice or bunker practice. That you try to avoid a bunker on the golf course. You hear people say that don't go in the bunker, it's the most difficult place to be. And I think that's rubbish. It's not difficult at all, unless you have, if they want to make bunkers difficult, they should have unraked bunkers. Then they would be difficult. Right? They were in the old days. If they wanted to make it difficult, they had unraked bunkers and they had mud in them. So it was always difficult. So from that, you start getting into what clubs should you play with, and the level of fitness it requires for golf, right? I think the mental strength, it's something that the psychology of golf comes a little later. It comes from, if you come from positive practice and positive results, you don't need any psychologist. You know what you have to do in golf. I think a player must learn to dream. He must have the ability to stay calm when there's chaos around him. He builds a kind of repeatable shot. So whether it's a draw or a fade or whatever he wants to play, there should be a level of repeatability in that. Over time, he should be confident to be able to go at flags or at whatever this thing, because I think building confidence is from good practice, from good methods. And there's a difference between confidence and optimism. A lot of juniors have this optimistic approach that they can go at a flag. The difference between a good player and a junior, and that is that the good player is confident that he can go at the flag, and he's not taking chances. It's confidence. I think the most important thing at the end of it is taking ownership of everything. I think from a junior to a pro golfer or to anybody, you have to take ownership of your mistakes, ownership of your game, and that's, I think, very, very important in the pro world if you want to make it a career.
Very nice, Jesse. In fact, in a very small, short, brief introduction, you actually shared a lot of value right there, and I can see why the students are getting so much confidence in working with you. Let's get to Shubhankar. Shubhankar, you're also a Fauji kid. Tell us a little bit about your early days, and then how did you go and meet Jesse sir and start working with him?
Hi, Digraj. So good morning. Thanks for having me. Actually, when I started golf, it was actually a coincidence. I remember you were talking to Anirban the other day, and Anirban and I share a very close bond, and he's probably one of the reasons why I started playing golf.
Wow.
In 2002, my dad was posted in Wellington, which is a hill station near Ooty, and my sister was born there. And my sister was a premature baby, and the doctor at that time was Anirban's father. He was the one who operated on my mother. So it was definitely a coincidence, because no one in our family played golf. No one knew anything about golf. Cricket was pretty much main sport in the house. Everyone used to wake up in the morning. Actually, Dad and I used to wake up in the morning, watch the India-Australia series ever since I was a kid. So, that was sport used to be cricket and football or basketball. It was never golf. And Anirban's father told my dad, because we used to go to the hospital every day. It was a tough time for the whole family. And I was like 5 years old at that time, and that's when he told Dad that my son plays golf, and he's one of the top juniors in India, and this is a sport which is really picking up, and you should really consider putting your son into it. And that's how I started. Dad and I went to the golf course on the very same day. Remember, Dad bought a car and got a golf set as well. He got a pretty sweet deal. He bought a second-hand Esteem at that time, and the officer who was selling his car was also selling his ladies' golf set, which Dad bought. And that was our first encounter with golf, and it just started from there, and I just picked on. My first club was a cut down 2 iron, and I just fell in love with the game.
Excellent. And at what stage did you decide to go and seek the guidance from Jesse sir? And
I don't remember properly, but I think it was 2007, if I'm not wrong, 6 or 7. Dad was posted in Bhopal, and the whole family, we all came to Chandigarh together just to take a lesson from Jesse. So to be honest, I still remember one thing. That was the drive up to the CGA range, and I remember I was so excited and nervous because I'd heard so much about sir. And for the first time, I was actually going and getting proper lessons for golf. So it was truly special, and I don't really remember the first session that I had, but that's how our journey started. And after that, Dad got posted to Patiala. It became much easier to travel to Chandigarh. It was only an hour away, and I just started coming as regularly as I could, probably once a month, and that's how we started.
so, how old were you that time?
2007, born in 96, so 11 years old, 10, 11 years old. 6 or 7 is the first time I went to him, so I would say 11 years old.
Well, that's a long journey together. So, tell me, what are the habits that Jesse sir worked on ensuring that you imbibed in your early days?
In my early days, the best thing about Jesse sir was that after the first 2 years, I remember we pretty much worked on all the fundamentals. So you can hear the sabji wala in the background. I'm just sitting outside. So I think in the beginning it was mostly working on the fundamentals, swing, the stance, the ball position. We worked on all the major stuff that needed to be covered. And after that, like Jesse sir said, the best thing about sir till this day is that he doesn't really interfere too much with your mind. Like, he just lets you play. He lets you figure it out on your own. And I guess that is very, very important, to let the child just be and enjoy the game and not get too technical with stuff. Because, when you're growing up, when you're 10, 11 years old, you want to have fun with friends. You want to go and have putting competitions. You want to enjoy playing a sport. The technical part is important, but you shouldn't be given so much information that it just clouds your mind. So even though I used to go to sir once in a month, and we used to work on everything, and I remember I used to be very nervous when I used to go to him. I wanted to hit the ball perfectly, and then after a few sessions I realized that the whole point of going to sir is that I don't have to hit it perfectly so that he can fix my swing. So that was our first few years, and every time I used to go back to Patiala or Bhopal, I used to just spend a lot of days and trying to figure out what he said and try and figure out a way to go and score, and not get too involved with the swing.
Actually, that's very good advice, that not to get too technical, enjoy the game. Very good points, I think, for the kids who are listening. I'm coming back to Jesse. Jesse, when you first met Shubhankar, do you remember what are the things that you prescribed to him to work on initially?
So I don't remember his first few lessons when he came from Bhopal, but when he was in Patiala, I used to do an army camp in Chandi Mandir, and I have a clear memory of him. These 3-4 kids, and Amandeep Dral, who plays the WGI, was part of that, and they would come from Patiala at 5 in the morning. They would leave at probably the camp was at 5:30 or 6 in the morning, and they would leave at 4:30 or whatever to get there. And after the camp, he would tell me, "Okay, sir, let's go and play." And I was to go to my lessons, but he was always wanting to get out and beat somebody. So he was always competitive, and he was also, he had a clear, when he came, though I regret that we didn't work enough on short game, because he would come with a clear idea that, okay, I want the ball to do this, and either I'm hooking it or whatever it was a kind of clear plan. And we used to have lessons pretty much in the same spot in CJ, because I knew if he was from inside and he started the ball right, if I took him to the fence on the right side, he couldn't start it right, and he had to figure out how to get the ball to go straight. So we kind of put a place where he was forced to learn to hit it straight. And I remember that was something which we had issues with. I mean, and that's something which I found very common in juniors, is more of hooks, because I hear other teachers talk about that they always have people are coming from over the top, but I don't think I have ever found anybody from over the top. And they were all tending to be from inside and having issues with more hooking the ball. And we worked on these things, and over the years, and I saw him develop, and sort of he was very clear with what he had to do, which is now, and I think retrospectively, that I think that he had a plan every time he came. And they came once he was in Delhi and Gurgaon, there would come 3-4 of his friends and him who were taking lessons from me would come together. They spent 3-4 days. Each would work on whatever they had to. And it was mostly working on the swing and the long game. I do remember that we spent most of our time on that.
So do you remember what were the things that you actually focused with him on his swing initially?
You know, for me, I can't. I mean, for me, every junior, I'm very kind of important to understand that. For me, there are two fundamentals in golf. There are only two. Forget about when people talk about posture and grip and all. I think that the face has to be square at impact, and the club must have a forward lean of shaft. And I think the face is not something which you can be square all the time. There is a degree of error in the face. But the forward lean of shaft is something which I find very important, that you have to hit the ball on the down, especially in iron.
Absolutely.
And I think that's over time, if I think back and I think of the iron players, and I think of Shubhankar being a great iron player, and I think Ajitesh, Abhijit, all these guys are great iron players. And I think one of these things is the fundamental of learning to hit down the ball. So I would do stuff to make sure that they would hit down on a ball, from downslope lies to whatever I would do to try and create that fundamental as a number one fundamental, that the player must have a forward lean of shaft. I also think that when a junior develops, I think the three main clubs, if you really look at the way they play, the three main clubs is a driver, or if you think of somebody shooting, say, an 80, they would have 30 shots with a putter at least, and they would have 14, 15 driver shots. That means you take out 45 from 80, you're left with 35. And you take the wedge into account, and you'll be left with 20 shots. So, you know, 80% of the game is with three clubs, and probably the fourth club is a rescue or a 3-wood, which these kids play with. And I think they practice 90% or 80% of the time with the irons at the junior level. And I think that's not so important. They must learn to hit your driver into play. They must learn how to hit a fairway wood or a rescue, and they must wedge it well and putt well. As golf goes into the elite level, I think this changes a bit to some other stuff which we do, but we'll talk about that later. I think I stuck to these kind of things to make them play better and to practice what they play more. And I think that's helped in developing some of these kids into good players.
Very, very, very true. And tell me, in terms of going beyond the golf swing, because golf is a lot more than just the golf swing. And you've already spoken about learning how to play and, you know, learning and feeling for yourself. But what about the importance of fitness, diet, mind? What all was done for this?
You know, I think these come in the journey. So kids generally, and I mean, there's a thing that, so we have, we got TPI into India, the Titleist Performance Institute, which is one of the premier ones of bio, and Greg Rose came in here, and we did 2 courses here, and I think they spoke about the ABCs of fitness, which is agility is the A, B is balance, and C is coordination, right? And S is speed. So I think kids, by and large, the boys especially, were playing other games. So they had coordination, they had a sense of balance, they were agile, they ran, they were, you know, before the age of TV and computers, I think guys were a little more outdoor than they are now. So these things were very much there. In fact, in girls, we had to, it's been a bigger change to get fitness going at an early age as compared to what we did in the past, where we actually asked girls to train much later, which was a mistake. And once we got fitness, so the next important thing came as golf clubs. And, you know, normally even Shubhankar started with a cut down 2 iron, and I think it's not the best thing to do, but they learn how to coordinate, which is for me also a very important thing in great players is that people talk about the word compensation. That we don't want compensation. We don't want somebody coming under the plane and closing the face. But I think if a good player can do two opposites and get it to work correctly, we'd call it coordination, which is probably a positive and it's not a negative. And if he can coordinate every time, he can go into, because when you practice on the range, there are only two places where you get the same condition. One is the driver with the ball on a tee, and one's the putting green. Rest, everything, the lie is changing, the different conditions you face. So the more the player is able to coordinate, the more he's able to do stuff in adverse conditions and in uneven lies and in poor conditions.
Very nice, Jesse. Very nicely put as well. Let me come to Shubhankar. Shubhankar, what do you remember from the early days? What are your memories of the things which were easy, tough, that Jesse sir asked you to do?
Like sir said, my main mistake at that time was I was hooking the ball a lot, and I guess most of the juniors who play the game in the beginning are trying to get as much speed out of their clubs as possible. And I was the same. I was trying to hit the ball as hard as I could, trying to hit it as high as I can. And as a result, at impact, both my feet used to be off the ground for many years. And it took me many years to figure out that the feet have to be stable and have to stay close to the ground to hit it. And that was something that I did for many years. And interestingly, I figured out a way to coordinate my club face and my body, and I could still hit the ball really well with my feet being off the ground. So I remember we used to work on those things in the beginning. Obviously, because of my feet being off the ground, my club used to fall inside, and then I used to whack at it with my hands and try and hook it from the right, and that's how I started playing. But over the years, I became stronger. I gained more speed and figured out how to use my upper body more than my lower body. I still struggle with using my legs a lot, and this is something that we still work on. I used to have this dip in my right shoulder, and that used to because obviously staying off the ground, I used to dip as well, and that's something that still stays with me. So I guess every player is unique. Every player has a certain way of hitting balls, and I guess some of their unique moves, they kind of stay with them all their lives. And for me, that thing has always been dipping a little bit with my right shoulder, and my neck kind of my head stays back at impact. And this is something that we still work on. It's been 13 years, and we still keep working on it and trying to improve that. But my first few memories are, like Sir said, the junior camp that he had at the Chandi Mandir Golf Club in Chandigarh. I very clearly remember that. To wake up very early in the morning, leave from Patiala, it used to take about an hour 15 to get to the golf course here in Chandigarh. And I remember all the sessions that Sir had. I remember all our group chats that we used to have, and all his slideshows that he used to show. So it was a lot of fun, and I still really miss those days. So those were the first few days that I had with Sir. And the best thing also was that I think one of the good things was that I was never in Chandigarh. So what happened was that every time I went back to Sir, I just kept wanting to go back to Sir. It was never a case of getting bored and feeling like, okay, Sir is here, I can go to him whenever I want. I always worked a lot on my swing and on myself, and always tried to improve myself whenever I went back to Sir, so that we could work on more stuff and not really try and harp too much on what we've already worked on. And I guess that's something that really worked in my favor. And we could move on from strength to strength in the beginning few years when I started and when I was playing in the junior circuit.
Shubhankar, one request: if you could just come a little closer to the mic. There's some outside disturbance is coming, and I think it's a little clearer when you're a little closer. But thank you.
Okay, is this
good
better?
Point. Yeah, much better. So I think much better. I think what you said is so apt that you would come back hungry. You would go back, work on what you had done, and let that be the fundamental for the next step. Tell me, Shubhankar, what are the habits that you built that time, which you think are holding you at the best today when you're playing at this highest level? Some of those habits which are making a big difference now.
Dad was in the army, so discipline was something that was instilled in me when I was a kid, even though Jesse sir won't agree with me because I still struggle with waking up in the morning. But going to the golf course was never a problem. I've spent as many hours as I could on the golf course, practicing, trying to get better. That's something that still stays with me. If I have to figure out something, then I'll spend as much time as I can. I was never distracted when I was a kid, in a way that I never really thought that I was missing out on my childhood, or I wanted to go and hang out with friends and stuff. And that is something that kind of kept me on track. Uh, Life was very regimented. I used to go to the school. I used to wake up in the morning, train a little bit. I mean, go for a run or do my physical activities. Go to the school, come back, spend about 3-4 hours on the golf course, come back home, watch something on TV, do my homework, and sleep. And I did that for years and years. Uh, and that's something that I think that prepared me for the life ahead in golf. Pro golf is also very disciplined. You move on from one place to another. Um, and me coming from an army background, I was pretty used to changing places. I mean, every 2 years we used to move. Uh, so I am pretty used to living out of a suitcase, and I was never really very attached to home. I was, even as a kid, I never really missed home that much. I was very, very happy going out and playing, and that is something that still helps me. I'm okay being out for 2-3 months at a stretch. I miss home, uh, but this is something that I got used to when I was a kid.
Excellent. And tell me, in terms of the golf technique, what are the few things from your childhood which you had incorporated, which are actually supporting you now under pressure?
For me, the most important thing, like sir, was trying to get the club face as square as possible at impact. So there are different types of players in golf. Some people just, you know, when they start, they just go at it. They're trying to hit it as long as possible. Um, don't really think much, and that's one way of playing when you're growing up, and that's how I guess you just gain distance, and then you figure it out how to put it in the fairway. I was very different in the beginning. Ever since I started playing golf, I used to concentrate a lot on precision. I really wanted to hit the ball very, very straight, and that's one of the reasons I became a very good iron player, I guess. Some of the best tournaments that I've played, I've averaged 16 greens every day, and that's something uh, like you said, I started doing when I was a small kid. I was never a very, very good driver of the ball. Uh, I used to just try and get it somewhere close to the fairway or probably in the rough, and I was very good with my irons. My short game wasn't the best, but my iron play was really good, and that's how I played my junior golf. I won a lot as a junior. I was number one in all the categories, and it was only because I was a good iron player. So precision was something that I really, really focused on, and for that, ball position, stance, I tried to be as orthodox as possible in my practice sessions, and uh, I think Jesse sir's easygoing attitude actually helped me because I actually used to get too much into it when I used to go back home, and if it was Patiala or Bhopal or even Gurgaon, and I was just try and figure out every single detail. A lot of times I used to come back to sir, and sir used to be very easy about it, and he used to say just have fun, just relax, don't think too much about it, and he still does that till to this day. I mean, I try and get too technical with stuff sometimes, and sometimes you just don't have to. You just have to go and play and score. It's a sport at the end of the day, and you don't want to get too involved in technique.
So well said. But just sticking on technique for a minute, what are the fundamentals which you think really helped you become a good iron player? Improve your driving as well. Some things which you think are fundamentally sound, necessary for somebody to imbibe in his game.
Uh, Fundamentally, the first thing that you look at is your grip, your stance, your posture, your alignment, your ball position. I mean, these things are something that you work on even as a kid, and even if you become one of the best players in the world, this is something that you keep revisiting. And uh, these are the checkpoints if you have to hit a good golf shot. You have to have the ball in the right positions. You have to align yourself perfectly where you want to hit it. You have to have a swing thought in your head. I think the swing plane and all that other stuff that comes in very late. The first few fundamentals are the grip, the stance, the ball position, and the alignment. And that's something that I still work on, especially in iron play, where precision is key, where you're really trying to hit the ball in a certain way, and try and hit it in a certain window to get the right trajectory and try and hit it close to the pin. I feel that is very, very important. Driver is very different. You can still go at it. The room for error is a lot more than when you're trying to hit an iron shot to a tucked right pin with water on the right. So all of these things are very important, like I said, and this is something that I still work on every day.
Excellent. That's good information for all the kids who are listening, and working on the games, that however good you may get, these fundamental and the basics still matter. Jesse, I'm coming to you. Tell me, at what stage did you realize that you had a special talent here in this young man?
I think that he's been, it's been a steady growth curve. I wouldn't say there's one real spot till he won in, even then he was in the Asian tour, considered one of the hottest prospects before he won Johannesburg. So I think it's a steady graph. He won the All India. There's been a sort of a very even kind of development over the years. From winning junior tournaments to winning All India as an amateur to turning pro at 16 because he was ready. I think he was ready, and I quite see that if somebody is ready, that they should turn pro early. And from there onwards, I think it's just history. So I can't say that there was one spot. I've seen him, play the Asian Tour events in Delhi, and always was getting better and better each year you saw him. So I can't say there was one particular time.
But tell me, to turn pro at the young age of 16, which is quite remarkable in itself, to have the confidence to believe that, I'm ready to do it, for you to believe that he's ready to do it. What were the things that helped?
I think that, I've always, I think some of the people won't agree with me, but I've always felt people who should turn pro, as if they're good enough, they should be able to play at the highest level in golf to know how good they are. And I think very well, I know that Becker won the Wimbledon at 16. So when do you become good enough? So I think if you can get good enough at that age, everybody who is peaking should turn pro early enough to be able to see that, and that's when in that field you will not stagnate. You will get better and better and better, because and if you're not good enough, you will realize you're not good enough.
So at what stage did you start feeling that this boy has got that extra bit to go the extra mile, and did you do anything differently to encourage that?
Well, he won the All India the year before that. So I think that if you already, you are playing well and you represented the country. You've been in the Indian teams as a Asia Pacific as a junior. You have the experience. You played everywhere. You are kind of ready. And I think that I've had others also who turned pro early. Karan Kocher turned pro early. Avijit turned pro. There are lots of kids. Vajitesh turned pro. May not be as early, but early enough. So I think Gurbaz turned early. I think Irina, all these people got into pro golf at a young age.
But were they doing something different to build that?
I think they were winning. I think they were good enough, and I think also somehow, if once you get into a certain, you have the same field again and again. In the amateur golf, there were about 4 or 5 people who could compete with them, and I think you needed a bigger field of good players. I think that's the way to push them on. You can't just leave them to be in a field where there are only 3 or 4 people who can push you or compete with you. And that's for me a thing which is important, that you have to keep. For him, his growth has been from the PGA to the Asian Tour to the European Tour to play the PGA Tour in certain events. I think that's very important, because that's what sets your goals higher. That's the way you dream to become a better player, only if you are going into a field where you realize that there is a lot more to be done.
Very nice and very true. So tell me, what kind of goal setting was done, if at all, and what was the way to practice correctly, which you imbibed in him and your other students?
I think so. The work you do on the range, when you see, you have to take out the big miss for sure. You cannot have a player who has a big miss on the range and say, okay, you're going to play well. So the dispersion patterns have to get tighter. You have to see that. So if you remember, Digraj, when we started golf in the old days, we used to have a caddy in front and we were hitting balls to the caddy's feet, right? and there was a shortage of balls, and if you didn't hit it to your caddy's feet, somebody else picked up the ball. So, and you couldn't buy balls. You learned how to hit it to the caddy's feet, and he was a moving flag stick, and you just learned how to do that. And so what happens is that you learn distance control as much as direction control, and distance control is a big thing, because in the old days, being pin high was more important than being straight, because being straight was not as difficult as being pin high every time. And I think a great iron striker who's hitting the ball same angle approach, same path, and the same face would have the ability to hit it the same length every time. And I think one of the strengths of Shubhankar and some of the iron players I have seen is their ability to control yardage. And in today's ranges, the kids are just trying to hit it far. They're trying to hit it straight. They only see one thing, that it's gone straight, has gone towards the 150 marker or whatever it is, but they don't know how far it's gone. And I think that ability is something which is to be built in players. And when you have a caddy in front and you practice towards the caddy, and I'm sure Shubhankar did most of his practice in the army golf course with the caddy in front. I think these things, they subconsciously help you, because you understand that you've got to hit it to the caddy's feet. You see the old videos of players, the caddy standing on a range, even on the Pro PGA Tour, and the ball would bounce one time, they would clean with the towel and put it in the bag, and the ball was coming the same way to them every time.
Jesse, very nice correlation. I think you're absolutely right. And it's an ability you built up subconsciously. Very, very, very nice. But tell me one thing, using that past and now correlating it with technology, TrackMan, etc. What is your thoughts on technology?
No, it's important, but technology, like say I've used, I don't own a TrackMan, but Shubhankar and Ajitesh have TrackMans, and I've worked with Himmat Rai on his TrackMan. I think it gives you, it's an assessment tool. It tells you what's happening, right? But it's not going to fix anything. So you've got to know how to get about fixing it. That's another story. It's like an X-ray. You go to or a blood test. You go there. You know the problem, but now somebody has to fix it. So it's a great tool. It tells you, and I think it's a great club fitting tool, because when you change, if you're fitting out a driver or fitting out some clubs, it gives you things like spin. It gives you all that. And I think I think I would consider it a better fitting tool than a teaching tool. And I would also know that if somebody had a TrackMan, that okay, now we found your A swing, this is looking good. Now you see the numbers, and you sort of freeze those numbers in your mind, that this is what my A swing, when I'm hitting it well, this is what the numbers it's producing. Maybe path face or this way, that way, whatever it is. And you have to when you're off, you have to go back to finding those numbers. And it comes a little tweaks like ball position and all, which can change numbers. And that's where TrackMan really helps you, is that when you're out somewhere, you can figure out that what you need to tweak, and not change the entire method of the swing, but what little things you can tweak to get back to the numbers, which are your A swing numbers.
I think there's a good distinction there in terms of fitting tool, testing tool. At the same time, if you're alone, these small tweaks which can help you, but still, I think majority of the work is still how the player is able to use his own mind and intelligence to figure the way out on a golf course.
Digraj, I think Indians especially are visual learners, and I've worked a lot on the Sampart lab for so many years now. Since 2008, we've had the Sampart lab, and I find when I give information in numbers to people, they don't understand it. They're just numbers. But when you give them a visual thing, it clicks in there. You show a video of the same thing, you show a ball roll video, it clicks in their minds much clearer. It's probably, I don't know how many people drive a car and look at the speedometer. You know the feeling, when you're too fast or you're too slow. You don't look at numbers to tell you what's happening. Some people work with numbers. We are not brought up with that kind of method. So I found that out of all the people, when I work extensively on the SAM also, numbers don't make sense to them.
I think good point there. And also at the same time, a good distinction as to how it can be best used. I'm coming to Shubhankar. Shubhankar?
Yeah.
Now, while this could be a question which I could have asked Jesse, but coming to you, what do you think are the elements that go into into developing a complete player? And what have you done in addition to what Jesse sir has taught you?
That's a very good question. So there are just so many things involved in becoming a complete player, as you say, a complete professional golfer. First of all, you need a lot of support. I think there is a team that is always behind you. It's very tough to do it alone. You need the mental support, you need the emotional support when you're out on tour playing. Uh, for me, it's always been my dad, my mom, and my sister. They've always been there. They're my pillars of strength, and they've always been there ever since I was a kid. Having those bad rounds or good rounds, I always had someone to come back to cry to, or to be happy with. When I was a kid, and even now when I play bad, I always have someone to call to, and they are always there as my emotional pillars and my support system. Uh, you need a very, very good coach who puts you on the right path. For me, Jesse sir has been there. He's guided me all throughout. And more than that, I think we share a very close bond. I think I can talk to him about anything. It's not only golf. He traveled with me a lot last year and helped me in a lot of other stuff as well, which was not golf related. So a lot of times you need that friend in a coach, and Jesse sir has always been there for me. Uh, so the right guidance, the right support, your inner drive to try and be the best that you can. I think that would be the most important thing, because you can have the best support system, you can have the best coach in the world, but if you from the inside don't want to do it, if you don't have the fire burning inside your belly, then it's very, very tough to get to the highest stage in golf, especially for us Indians. The way we start, we have to go through a lot of stages till we actually get to the PGA Tour and make it to the majors and to the highest level of golf. It takes a lot out of yourself. It takes a lot of discipline, a lot of determination, a lot of perseverance to get to that stage. And for that, you have to be determined, and you have to have that fire burning in your belly to get to where you want to get. So that, I would say, trumps everything else. You have to have that in you, that you want to get there. And I feel, I'm one person who really believes in destiny as well. It's not very practical, I guess, but you have to have. It's just, I think some of the best players in the world, they've just had the right things for them happen at the right time. Not only a sport, I think in across all fields, you definitely need those important breaks, and I've gotten those breaks in my career, and I've been lucky enough to make full use of them, and you know, play well at the right time. Those things are very important as well. I think these are the 4 5 things that you really need, and if you have all of these things, I don't think anything can stop you.
Very interesting. And but besides these things, in terms of preparing yourself, in terms of fitness, diet, what are the things that you're doing to be ready for the rigor of pro golf?
Fitness is definitely something that's really catching on now in golf. For the past 10, 12, 15 years, fitness has been a big part of golf, especially with the modern golf swing becoming more athletic. People hitting it really, really long. There are average on the PGA Tour is probably more than 290 yards. And a lot of golf courses that I played last year and the year before, when that doesn't cut it. A lot of players hitting it 305, 310 in the air, and they definitely have an advantage. And that is definitely because they put a lot of work in the gym. Everyone has a physical trainer. If you go to the best events in the world these days, if you go to the major championships, everyone travels with a team of 3 or 4. Everyone has a dietitian. They have a physical trainer. They have a massage therapist, and everyone travels with the coach. So it's like a team of 5 6 people that travel. Fitness plays a big role. Fitness and diet play a big role. I work with Sagar Devan, who's the fitness trainer here at the Chandigarh Golf Association, and Sandy Pariyar, who was in Noida. So I keep shuttling between both of them, and every time I'm on tour, I do video calls with them, trying to figure out stuff. I need when I'm playing on tour, where I'm out for about a month or two, the body gets sore. You need a massage therapist or a physiotherapist, and I have that as well. He comes and travels with me at least once a month to keep the body in shape. And the mental aspect is very, very important. Meditation really helps. Golf being a sport where you have to control your emotions and go and perform at the highest stage, meditation and breathing exercises really help, and that is very important as well. So like I said, it's just so many wide, like there's a variety of so many things that go into becoming or to prepare a professional golfer, and you have to tick all the boxes in order to get to where you want to get.
So I'm going to quickly ask you, what was your routine as a youngster, and what is your routine now? How has it evolved?
Fitness routine has really evolved. When I was a kid, it was mostly, my dad was in the army, so just get up in the morning, go for a 5 kilometer run, do a few push-ups, sit-ups, and I guess that was good enough when I was 13, 14 years old, just before school. And now it's a lot more in-depth analysis of different muscles and how the different muscle groups work when you're hitting the ball. There are so many new technologies that have come in. The TrackMan obviously gives you all the numbers with regarding to your swing speed, your attack angle, your spin rate, and stuff like that. It's a great fitting tool. You have things like the K Vest, which tell you exactly how your body is moving. I feel like all of these things really help in you understanding how your body is moving and what is required by your body to get to its best level. And for me, I've done that over the past few years. I've worked with a lot of fitness trainers, and for now, it's for me particularly. I do a lot of work on my core. I do a lot of work on my lower body. I do a lot of work on my upper body, scaps, my triceps. That is probably one of my weakest spots. My scapulas and my triceps, and we work a lot on that. And this quarantine is actually, in a way, it's a blessing in disguise because I get a lot of time to work on it, and I'm not really bothered about my body being sore because I don't really have to go and play a tournament the next day. So the fitness routine has really evolved. The practice routine has also changed because when I was a kid, it used to be just spending hours and hours on the range hitting balls. Now it's I just spend more time a short game. If I would go and hit balls for, if I'd be on the range for 3 hours, I'd probably hit balls for an hour and 2 hours on the short game, because that's something that I have really worked on, and this is something that we still work on, Jesse sir and I, on my short game. So the practice routine has really evolved, and like I said, I've just tried to analyze every aspect of my game, my body, my mental side, and I guess that happens when you get to a certain level of competing at the highest level, and you just keep on pushing yourself to get better. And at the end of the day, I think you just have to get used to, or probably fall in love with, the process of learning and getting better. I think that's very important, and that is something that I have gotten used to in the past 2 3 years, and that's something that I still do every day.
Very nice, sir. Good to hear the entire range. And tell me one thing, quick tip. How do you get the best out of your coach?
How do you get the best out of your coach? Just let him do his thing. I guess you don't really. That's a good question, actually. How do I say the best out of your coach? I think it's the other way around. The coach will get the best out of you. You don't really have to do much. Actually, I share an interesting story with you. I think we were playing. This was last year, and I was playing in the CIMB Classic in Malaysia, which was a co-sanctioned event with the PGA Tour. I remember 2 3 days before that, sir came in probably 3 days before the tournament. I think it was Sunday when he came in, and I was hitting it so bad. Like I couldn't really. I had no idea how I was going to play the event. The only saving grace for me was that there was no cut in the event, and I was like, okay, at least I'll play 4 days. But I was hitting it really bad. I couldn't middle it off my club pace, and it was just, I was hitting a few shanks, and it was a very, very bad state. And I remember going to the range with Jesse sir. The golf course was shut, so we went to a nearby driving range and just hitting. Even the balls weren't great, and we just spent about 3 4 hours there, and no TrackMan, nothing, just old school, going and doing drills how we always used to do it when I was a kid. And it took me 3 hours then, and we slowly and steadily we built our swing on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And I was leading the tournament after 3 days. I eventually ended up finishing 10th, but that's how good our communication is, Jesse sir and I. He exactly knows what I need. He knows when to say what to me and at what time. And at that time, I don't think if there would have been anyone else in the world, he wouldn't have been able to help me to go and compete the way I did in that tournament. And Jesse sir was there, and he could figure out what I needed then, and he actually got the best out of me. So I think you just keep quiet and let the coach do his thing.
That's interesting. I mean, to go from a stage when you're hitting shanks, practically,
it was terrible. It was
to
very,
go
very
and
bad.
lead a tournament where some of the world's best. That's incredible. I mean, it also tells a golfer that if you listen and you do the right things, how quickly you can also recover.
Yes, and
The
that's how
level of faith,
the
I think, is
game
very
is.
critical on this.
Exactly. That's
But
how the
great, good
nature
to
of the
hear
game
that.
is. Yeah.
Tell me, one of the things which a lot of people have also asked is, Indians have had this tendency of you reach 300, 400, and you start defending a score. Whereas, a lot of players out there are going from 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 under. How did you learn how to go so deep?
You just stay in the present. You don't really think about the score, and it's easier said than done. Because even I struggled with it when I was a kid. You're 200 through 9 holes, and you start feeling excited. Oh, I'm going to shoot 600 today, and then suddenly you make a bogey, and everything goes downhill. So, I guess that's very normal when you're a junior and when you're starting out shooting under pars, and it's a very exciting time. But at the same time, you have to remind yourself to be in the present. And for me, that started happening when I turned pro in 2013. Before that, 2 3 under was probably 4 under was probably my best score. And this is something that I learned after I turned professional, interacting with all the different pros on the tour who'd been on tour for many years, picking up things and things from them every day, being on tour, just discussing stuff and how their mind works when they're playing and what they think about. And it's just about staying in the present. You don't get ahead of yourself. You just keep doing what you've done till then to get to that score, and everything kind of falls into place after that.
Fantastic. I think it's a good lesson there for everybody. Quick one before I get to Jesse. How do you manage all these things while you're on tour? I mean, what's a typical day like?
Typical day on tour is it's very busy, very hectic. You get up in the morning. I'm a vegetarian, so last year I started cooking as well. So I used to get up in the morning, make myself a smoothie or a shake, and I love having dal and rice. So I used to put some dal in the water just to soak so that I can come back and make it in the night. So do that in the morning. Just do your normal stretches, warm ups, meditate for about 10 15 minutes just to get yourself in the zone. You get to the golf course about 2.5 hours before your tee time. Go to the physio truck, do some warm ups, go and have your breakfast. About it whenever your tee time is. If you're playing late, then a quick brunch. Head to the range. My average practice session lasts about an hour, so I do that, and just after that you just get to the course and uh, just play away. You finish your round. Then again, go back to the range, do the same stuff, figure out what you've done right or what you've done wrong, work on it, get back, stretch a little bit, I guess, cool off a little bit, talk to your friends. That's what I do. Talk to my friends, watch something, or uh, read a book. Just take your mind off golf. Spend some time in the gym. Make that dal that I left in the morning to soak. And yeah, off to bed at about 10 o'clock in the night. It sounds exhausting, but like I said, you have to fall in love with the process. So it's not as bad as it sounds. It's a lot of fun. You interact with so many people. The tour is a fun place to be. There are 120 players playing, so it's a lot of fun.
Great, thank you. In fact, Jesse, it brings me back to you. That tell me, what was the experience like of going out and playing the majors, traveling with Shubhankar, seeing the actual highest level of performance, your student there and the other coaches there as well?
So actually, in my journey with all the juniors, in all the years, that is probably in this last 30 years of teaching juniors, I have never been to a junior tournament. Never. And I used to tell all the juniors that you have to be prepared. There was I have a cousin who was an Olympic hockey player. He had given me once a little thin book in which he said that it's how hard it's for an Olympian who has to prepare all his life for one shot at it. That's an average they have. And so they would prepare, and before the Olympics they would just start. There was a little just like a book on the psychology of these Olympians. They would start telling themselves that I am prepared to the best of my ability, right? And I have to play to the best of ability. If somebody is much better than me, I can't look at them. And I think, if you really look at how Hogan used to practice, Ben Hogan had this thing of he used to go to the right side of the lane, right-handed player, and take the extreme right spot so his back was turned to everybody else, so he wouldn't know what anybody else was doing, but he knew what he had to do for himself. So I think
Excellent.
once you have to get into this kind of cocoon to once you know your strength, you can play only the best of your ability. And so once you know that ability, you can take it to the golf course, right? So I never went for junior tournament. I tell them that you are prepared. If you play to the best of your ability, I don't have to do stuff on the range. So when I went with Shubhankar to the Masters, that was my first big event. I'd been to the Panasonic and the Indian Opens, and I'd worked with all the players there also. So I was really a spectator at the Masters. I just, whenever he would ask me something, I would help out. And because I didn't want to touch too many things at that time. We had some issues, but we practiced very hard. And a short game was an issue that time also. And I remember me and Gurbaz and him standing next to a green and making him hit shot after shot or try to hit the high shot. Because, we never have the tight lies in India, what they had there. And, short game really gets exposed when the kind of conditions change. You have super fast greens, you have flags tucked in, and you have really, really tight lies. So the kind of level you need in short game is different. You can't find that kind of level here to practice. You don't have the conditions to practice. So the Masters was like that. Then he played well. I think the only thing which went wrong in the Masters was there was one hole, the fourth hole, which we didn't have a club to. And what you see on TV, the Masters Augusta is completely different. It has got so many slopes that you can't imagine. And he was bogey twice in that hole, and he missed the putt cut by 2 shots because he didn't have a club for that particular. It was the longest par 3, and the iron wouldn't get there, the wind would swirl there, and the rescue was too long, and so you had issues on that hole, and he actually didn't make the cut only because of one hole. And the same thing repeated in CIMB also. One hole got him because we didn't have a club to that hole. There's another par 3 where when he was leading, he lost out because of that one hole. Anyway, so we got to the Open that year, and in my bucket list was to get to any of these tournaments. I never dreamt that I would go with a player, and for me, he fulfilled the Masters, and then to get to the Open was kind of special to me also. The Masters was something I never believed I'll be there with a player, but the Open was something which was a dream for me to go with one of my players. So you get to the Open and he tells me, Jesse sir, aapne sab kuch badal laya na, sab kuch badal. Now that came from him, and it opened my eyes to a different journey with a player because he was willing to change everything at a tournament. So we're standing on the range and we did lots and lots of changes. We did a lot of stuff on the golf swing with the TrackMan. So first thing was I had that impression that we had to hit the ball low. We've got to Carnoustie, it's a tough golf course, and you have to hit stingers. And we look around and everybody is hitting it high. At apex of driver, 110 feet. And I'm saying, this is not what I imagined. But we quickly adapted and said, okay, this is what it is. If you have 0 spin axis and it's under 5 the spin axis, we'll be able to take the golf course even if and he used to hit the driver very high, and it was a worry for me. So we started work on trying to get these things, and the TrackMan really helped that time because it gave him feedback immediately of what we had to get to, right? Then we changed a lot on the putting green, and since then, I've had the confidence from his side that whatever I see, he asks me sometimes, "Ki aapko kuch aur bhi dikhta hai, mujhe batao." Even when I tell him it's fine, he says, "No, tell me if you find something which is not there." And
Interesting.
we worked so hard on the range. So the only other guy I've seen who's at the range for as long as ours be on every tournament is Aaron Rai, who's there from morning till the last guy to leave the range. So we worked. So it's one of the things now I changed my idea with players is that when we work with juniors, I didn't want them to be too dependent on me, and so maximum was 1 lesson a week was the max. Now if you do half an hour once a week, you've done 2 hours in a month, and you've done 24 hours in a year. Shubhankar and me working 24 hours every week, we were there, apart from the golf course. I also make it a policy to walk every 18 holes every day and never sit in the clubhouse. I watch, and if I'm walking at 18 holes, I don't need statisticians to tell me what's going on. I can see what's happening. So every tournament, every round, every practice round, I walk all 18 holes with him every time. And even if Ajit is playing, I just walk with every player. So that's something which changed with me. And we went CIMB when he's talking about in his story was that he was hitting it real bad. And that range we went, they closed the golf course because of lightning, and we went to a neighboring range which was open, and it was horrible, that range. It was torn mats, terrible balls. But we got to work on something, and we also had Shubhankar's his physio with him. So I explained to him what I want, because there was some extension happening in the hips, and I told him I want this change by you work with him to release this stuff. So he also got an idea what we were looking for in a golf swing, and it was like a little bit of teamwork there. And on the last day of CIMB, before teeing off on Thursday morning, I changed his putter.
Wow.
Right? And he said it looks okay. He had asked for a putter, and we said I'm not happy with the way the old putter the ball was coming off always left, and we changed the putter, and he had the confidence to accept that I said, Shubhankar, it's looking perfect, the ball is rolling perfect, just take it to the golf course. And he putted fabulously through that tournament, and he had the confidence of accepting that and saying, okay, I trust you. If you say it's better, it's better. And that's been happening after that for every tournament we've traveled together.
That's fantastic. And that, I think, speaks volumes about the faith, which is both ways, I think from his side and from your side too, to make a change that way and to go from shanking to, leading a tournament. That's phenomenal. So compliments right there. Okay. I want to ask you another question. Jesse, what's it like when you're playing on these, you're with him on these international majors, the big tournaments? You also see a lot of other coaches there, and there's a lot of new stuff happening on the coaching domain. What's it like there in terms of your own learning?
I think that all the top coaches, I've seen Pete Cowan work, I've seen Sean Foley work, I've seen everybody at the ranges. Okay, they have TrackMan numbers, but really they keep it very simple. They are not creating complex situations, and they understand the individuality of every player.
Right.
So you see a Butch Harmon of the Masters got 5 players, and they all swing it differently, and he respects everybody and only gives them something which they need to know. So it's very individualistic. You have to understand, and all the good coaches and all the good doctors and everybody who is at that level keeps things very simple.
Very true, very nice, and I think good point right there. One question which has just come up is, and I just want to ask this right now: what is the importance of feedback in terms of how brutal would you be or how soft would you be in terms of giving feedback to Shubhankar, and how would he take it?
No, he takes it very well, and I gave him a lot of feedback, and a couple of, again, I just want to just think about the journey we've had together. We've spoken about good iron play, and for me, when I go into a tournament and I see that his iron play is good, I have the confidence that he'll play well. Doesn't matter how he drives it, and I think his driver, I would give credit completely. When he was very young and he used to come to me, we found that driver was an issue. That's when I first introduced him to Gurbaz. And Gurbaz, what we did was we got a driver and we removed all the weights of the heads, the one which you adjust the thing. And the sound of the driver was horrible because it would make a loud sound. But Shubhankar immediately could swing it better because he needed something light in his hands. So after that, Gurbaz has been able to give him club shafts and work on things which will help his driving completely. So his driver is very much dependent on club fitting. And his iron play is his strength. It's always been his strength. He still plays with his irons, which he played for a long time. We don't think that there's any change required. And the rest, putters is something which we keep, working on, trying to get different putters. Or when he loses the field with one, we do change the putter very often. And I think now, for me, the key is the day he's hitting it well, he's hitting like 17 greens on regulation. The day he's hitting it badly, the short game has sometimes not come up to the mark. It's not saved him. And that's what our work is now. There's to get that in order, that you don't have a poor round of golf if you're not hitting it well enough. He goes for every flag. And that's something I don't want to change. He even the tightest flags which people are playing safe to, Shubhankar's always at it. And that's something he's got a reputation for now on tour, he goes for everything. So, and that's something which I leave him to him because that's the way he sees it. That's the way he plays. And I don't want to change it.
Wonderful. That's really good to hear. In fact, that brings me back to you, Shubhankar. Tell me one thing. Going on the tour, and like you mentioned, you're having discussions with players and you've actually helped you in one way of going deeper. But there's so much new information out there. How have you kept your mind? I mean, there are two ways of looking at it. Controlled by not taking in too much that can bother you, at the same time absorbing what is useful and letting it work for you. How do you manage that?
So it's a good question. I think someone's mic is not on mute. That's a good question, sir. I mean, obviously there's so much information when you go on tour. People working on different techniques, people working on different fitness methods, diet, and I think it's all information. At the end of the day, it's great to take all of that in, but I guess you yourself have to figure out what is right for you. Certain type of a certain swing may not be right for you, and it might work for the other person. Or a certain diet plan probably suits you better than what it would suit another. Like it won't really suit another person, but it would really suit you. So at the end of the day, like Jesse sir said, he spoke about Ben Hogan, how he used to go at the end of the race and hit balls so that he never really saw any other person practice. At the end of the day, you have to, when you get to a tournament, you have to just shut the noise off and just do what you are good at and believe in your system of practicing, of your system of playing, what has gotten you where you have gotten. And I do, obviously, there are new things that come up. I read new things. There are new things that I see when I go to different ranges at different tournaments, different players working on different stuff. Short game is something that is very, very dynamic. There are so many new things, new techniques to play out of different types of grasses. Whether it's a hard pan lie or it's a soft lie, whether you're playing out of thick rough or you're playing off the fairway. There are different techniques of using the bounce of the club. There are so many things, and one thing, like I said, I had a very good relation with Jesse, so I can call him anytime and discuss things. And I've done that for many, many years, ever since I was a kid, and up until now, whether it's whether it's the Open Championship or it's a normal tournament of the PGTI. If I have a doubt in my head, I call him and we discuss it. So analyzing stuff is very important, and I always try and run everything by Jesse sir, uh, and figure out what is right for me and what is wrong.
Excellent. Tell me, Shubhankar, this is somebody everybody wants to know is what was the experience like when you got into contention to win your first European Tour event, and what went through you, and how did you manage that?
Joburg Open. That tournament was very special. Another interesting story, I wasn't going to go for the event. The week before that, we were playing in Mauritius, and my whole family was there. I'd had a long season. It was the end half of 2017. I think it was the last week of November when we played in, I think it was the first week of December or the last week of November when we played in Mauritius. And I had a long season. I played decent on the Asian Tour. I think I was finishing in the top 20 that year on the merit list. And I was just tired. I just traveled so much, and we kind of decided that it's better if we go back home. And for some reason, I shot a decent score on the last day in Mauritius, and we decided, what the hell, let's give it a shot. It's just one tournament. It's only a 2-hour flight from here, so just go and play, and obviously I have to go back home after that. So no harm. I went there. It's probably one of the hardest tournaments to win. There are over 200 players playing that week.
Okay.
We play on 2 different golf courses. I actually didn't even get all 36 holes in my practice round. I only played 27 holes, didn't play 9 holes because it got washed out. And I remember that whole week was just one of those weeks where I was just in the zone. There was nothing distracting me, and all I could think was going on the golf course and doing my best and shooting under par rounds. I don't think I've had a week like this ever since, or even before that. I was just in the zone. I was alone that week. No one was there with me. And it was just a very, very special week. I remember I was so nervous on Sunday when I got to the golf course, finished 8 holes, and it started raining, and it got suspended and got extended to Monday. And that Sunday night was very, very tough. I remember it was raining all night. I couldn't really sleep well. I was very, very excited, very nervous. And I remember getting to the golf course on Monday, and I handled it really, really well. It was a lot of people walking. The guy who finished second was South African, so there was a lot of support for him. But it was just, after you go through that emotional ride of, trying and finishing off the tournament on Sunday, getting off to a great start, then it being stopped by lightning and not being, able to go and finish stuff out there, not knowing when you're going to play again. To go through all of it and to win on Monday was very, very special, and it just made all of that worth it.
Okay, I think there's a bit of a bandwidth problem. Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you. I think there must have been some lag. I can hear you very
Okay.
well.
So Shubhankar, frankly, what? Okay. Do you remember what was your thought process in terms of routine on the final day that day?
It was just staying within myself. I knew whatever I was doing was good enough because I'd been leading the tournament before. Up until that point, I was leading by about 5 shots going into the last round. So I'd been doing everything correctly, and I didn't really have to change anything. All I had to do was stay in that same zone and just stick to the process. Process is very, very important when you're playing a golf tournament. And once you gain momentum, when you shoot a low number, you just have to not do anything differently. Do the same thing that you've been doing for the past 3 days, whether be it on the golf course or off the golf course. So for me, I just stuck to the same routine. I used to finish my round every day, get back, stretch, walk to the mall. There was an Indian restaurant, have food, get back, sleep. So I did pretty much the same thing every day. And even Sunday night, I did the same thing. Monday morning when I got there, uh, obviously it's tough when you're in a situation like that, away from home. You don't really have anyone to support you. You're the only one. You just have to stay within yourself and tell yourself that whatever you've been doing till now works. So just go and play. And for me that week, I just had one swing thought in my head. I don't remember what that was, but it was easier for me to just think of that and hit shots on the range. And I remember I was hitting it really good on the range. Um, and I just took that to the golf course. I just tried to keep it as simple as possible. I had a local caddy that week, so we used to have some banter on the golf course. Between shots, I used to talk about his life in South Africa, and he used to tell me all about it. So it was a very, very nice week, and I just stuck to the process throughout, and that's what got me through in the end.
Fantastic. That's really good to hear. Shubhankar, one more question for you.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to bring in another play here. You played with Brooks Koepka during the Kensville Open in India, in Ahmedabad, and then you were paired with him during the Open Championship. By the time he'd become world number one, when you play with players like this, what is that you saw and that you imbibed and you learned from seeing that growth journey of another player in this manner?
Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic playing with Brooks in the Open Championship. The biggest thing that I saw in him was just his confidence. He was world number one, but there was no pressure. He just won. Uh, he'd won the U.S. Open the year before. And he was just playing so well at that time, and you could just see the confidence oozing out of him. He had no pressure at all. There were so many people walking with him, so much media stuff going on. People talking about if he can, win another one and win 4 majors and get closer to Rory and Phil and all of these guys. But I could just see that confidence in him. He didn't really care about much. He didn't really think too much on the golf course. He would just go. He would know what he had to do. He was very clear-headed. Would just go and just play away. And he just treated it just like any other tournament. There was nothing different that he did, and that was something that I saw, and I really liked it. When I started the first day playing with him, we didn't really have the best of conditions to start with. It was raining, it was windy, but I just saw the way he was playing. He was very calm and cool about it. He was talking to his caddy, he was having fun, and that's when I told myself, him being the world number one, he has everything to lose, and he is so chilled out playing on the golf course. Why do I have to put extra pressure on myself? And that actually worked for me because I also got into that rhythm and I played really well. uh, the second day, I think until the 12th or the 13th hole, I was only a shot behind him. I was, I think, 3 under and he was 4 under. So it was pretty good. We were both in the top 15 at that time, and it was just a lot of fun. And talking about the growth of a player, that's one thing that I really saw was very different in him when we played in Kensville. I was a kid back then. That was my first tournament as a professional, and he traveled all the way from America. And his body changed so much since then. He was a very thin, tall American at that time, and he used to hit it very wayward. He used to hit it everywhere, and we both had terrible rounds that day. But just to see the evolution of a player, it was very, very inspiring. And getting to the top of the golfing summit, I mean, becoming world number one is the biggest thing that any player dreams of. And I could just see the changes that he's made in his attitude towards the game, his swing, his body language on the golf course, his body, everything was different, and it just inspired me a lot. And actually, in a way, it helped me that I played with him and Louis Oosthuizen, who himself, in his own regard, is one of the best players to play the game. And it just pushed me on, and I actually ended up playing some of my best golf in that tournament in the first 2 days.
Fantastic. It's a great way how one player feeds off another. But tell me,
Absolutely.
after playing at this level, how is it, and what are the things that you have realized that you need to work on to actually be the world number one?
For me, if I talk about the technical aspect, short game is something that's always a work in progress with me. And Jesse sir would agree with that. That's something, I have weeks where I'm chipping it really well, and then I have weeks when I'm not really chipping well, and then I become too reliant on my long game to perform. And when that's happening, it's a wonderful place to be in. I mean, I'm hitting all the greens, making all the putts, shooting low numbers. You can't really keep that up every time. And in order to win majors, you need to have a really good short game, and that's something that we still work on. Technically, that is definitely there. Mentally, uh, and attitude wise, I think I've played amongst all of these best players. I've competed against some of the best players in the world. I've played in elite fields, and I'm pretty used to it now. Uh, but it's again, it's a journey that you have to take. Golf is just a journey that you take within. You just keep on, you fall in love with the process of getting better and getting better at managing your emotions, getting better at just knowing when to push the accelerator on the golf course and when to just hold on, which flags to go for. Like Jesse sir says, I'm very used to going at every flag, but that doesn't work when you're playing major championships, because you have to really plot your way around the golf course and know where to hit it and where not to hit it. And I have made a lot of these mistakes playing in these big events where I think I could have done better if I was more mature and played in a different way. So that's something that I'm learning every day. As I play on higher tours and learn from all of these players when I see them playing. Uh, so I mean, I was pretty close to winning the Mexico Championship in 2018, and that's when I kind of realized that I have it in me to compete at the highest stage in golf and win playing amongst the best players in the world. So it's just about getting back there and managing myself better, and sooner or later I'll get to a point where I am competing in the majors and I'm closer to the world number one spot that I've always wanted to get to.
Well said, and wish you the best there, Shubhankar. I'm sure it's going to happen sooner than later. Tell me a low point in your life and how did you handle that?
Uh, Low point. It's a good question. I've not really had a very low point till now. I think it will probably come in the future. But I mean, how do I say it? Last year was not the best of years that I had. After 2018, which was a great year for me, where I played on 3 tours and won the Arjuna Award. It's always tough to follow up a year like that with another good year. And I struggled a lot in the beginning last year. Wasn't playing my best golf. Had a few good finishes, but wasn't playing well. And then towards the middle of the year, I just traveled so much. I was just tired of traveling. I was trying to get my card on the PGA Tour, playing on the European Tour, playing some events in Asia. It just became a lot for me. And for me, wasn't a low point as such, but it was just a. I got to a stage where uh, like it just became tough for me going from one place to another, struggling with food, struggling with not having the company that I used to enjoy playing on the Asian tour. And that's when I guess you just have to put things into perspective. You just have to tell yourself this is what you always wanted to do. And I got to a stage uh, towards the end of last year when Jesse sir also traveled with me, where I actually started enjoying it more. I remember in Italy when Sir was there, we played really well. I finished seventh there, and it was such a good week because we used to go on the golf course, play, come back, and then not talk about golf, and used to just go and roam around and watch the different sites there. We went and saw all the old Roman ruins. We saw the Colosseum. We saw other stuff. So I got to a stage where I started enjoying it again, and which I was kind of missing in May, June last year, probably even August last year. So that's the only low point that I've had. I think I'll definitely have some low points in the future, but I think in the end you just have to put things into perspective and just be grateful for where you are. It gets tough on tour, but you just have to enjoy the process and enjoy playing on tour and have as much fun as possible. And I started doing that towards the end of the year, and that really helped because I had some good finishes as well.
Well said. And I think there's a lesson there for everybody who's listening as well. So wish you the best. Jesse, I'm coming back to you. Just wanted to ask you just a couple of quick closing questions. But tell me, how are you keeping yourself abreast with the wealth of knowledge that's being generated across the world? And how do you filter out what works, what doesn't work? What's the way to do it?
So, at the NGI, it's our job to keep up with all the knowledge in the world. So I keep doing the TrackMan stuff. I've got a KWS. I work on Sam Putt Lab. I've been to Phil Kenyon for his level 1 and level 2 and his the higher levels. So I am keeping up with everything, and then trying to keep. The thing is, sometimes we tend to give too much information to the players, and I just try and sort of see, okay, this is what their underlying principles are, and try and make it into a simple form, and I don't try and tell the player everything, and I use all the information they've got and try and internalize that and put it into, compare it to the video and say, okay, now if we just had a video and if we just knew what was happening. And I think with Shubhankar, the main issues have been, like I said, apart from short game, is that he's very good with his hands and his club face, and the only thing which goes wrong is the work of the body. And I think two things which we've had in the last 2 years, he never used to have these issues when he was younger with the body, and I think maybe travel did it. And the second thing which really did it was a change of shoes. And I've had a lot of people who say that it couldn't be that important. But after the Masters, when he really got into a contract and the style of the shoe changed, it took us a year to get into the right shoe with that company to be able to be more balanced, because his balance was getting affected in a big way. And he's played all his life with a particular kind of a shoe. And it was a huge impact. So from Masters in 2018 till about March of 2019, there was a struggle with the change of shoe. And in 2019, it got fixed. He went to London, he went to a specialist, and we got the whole thing changed. And since then, his game started returning to what it should be.
It's interesting, how such a seemingly small thing can actually play such a significant role. I remember reading an article on this as well, and I think it was very well articulated. And I think it's a learning there as well, how these things can matter. But tell me, Jesse, anything else you're doing to disseminate all this information within the NGI?
Well, we do our courses. The NGI has these courses, the D, C, B, and A courses. And every course we cover all these things again and again. So we are now, you could say, proficient with the numbers and proficient talking about this stuff. And the question is now, how do you now? Say, in everything you do, there is a what do we have to do, where you need some information coming from TrackMan or KWS or anything. Then the question is, when do you do it? There's a sequence of what first and what next. And you understood the what and why already. And then the how could be so many ways. And that's the tools which a coach has. And you have to have the maximum tools you have, the better you get. So it's not the same tool you use with everybody. So there can be no argument between coaches on what has to be done, because you can see, everybody can see the same thing, or they should be able to see the same thing. The hows differ from coach to coach. And the tools we keep trying to, when we go out, when we are watching other coaches work, we are looking at the tools they're using. How are they asking a player to change something? Somebody's using an alignment stick at the back, somebody's using video, somebody's using the TrackMan, somebody's using some. There's a lot of the pros use gadgets. They use some training aids at times, and they use a lot on the putting greens. So you're seeing all that and figuring out, okay, with this kind of player, with this kind of fault, we can use this. And so there are more ideas coming all the time on different tools you could use. So the hows, the methods you can use are developing all the time. The assessment has become easier over the years. I don't need so much. I just need to see a player hit a ball and then see a video to know really that I have to confirm what I have seen, and then be able to move in and do a lesson.
Very nice. Jesse, after all that, what advice would you have for parents of kids who are coming up now? And
the parent stuff is very important, and maybe I differ with a lot of people in this. So first thing, I think Shubhankar's family has done a huge sacrifice to provide him everything. His father left the army. They relocated in Chandigarh to be closer here. They didn't have a home in Chandigarh. So I think the parents have given a huge sacrifice. And I think the most important thing I think in a parent is to be the support system. You don't have to do any technical work. You have to be the pillar of strength for your kid. You have to be, you have to be the balm when they are down. You have to be able to help them and not talk down to them. I see a lot of coaches who don't want the parent around, and I think that for me it's something I can't avoid. I think the parent is part of my team, and so I let the parents stand there and listen. The only thing I tell them is, like even in the little red book, Harvey Penick says that if I ask them to take an aspirin, don't give them the whole bottle, right? So you have to tell them that don't sort of hear what I'm saying and then keep on telling the same kid this about 100 times. I said, it's just a cue you have to give the person and then let them do the work themselves. Maybe you can observe, you can help. So a lot of parents do come with the kids to the range, the younger ones and even some of the older ones. So the advice is that, just support them, be the pillar of strength, be the balm when they are down, be the one who's helping them get better, and never use the word never. Also, expect that there will be bad days. Don't let your body language show on the kid. Don't let it show on yourself if the kid feels that it's not a good day. Expect these are part of things that are going to happen all the time. And set realistic goals, be the support system, keep encouraging all the time. I mean, when a kid learns to walk, you don't teach them to walk. You just sort of are there in case they fall. And that's what you have to be. You have to let them grow slowly, and they actually start with the big things, and then they go into the small things and the finer things. And, sometimes people read and sort of start giving the finer things too early. Parents sometimes do that. I think we just have to go with the speed the kid is developing at. Watch them. Some kids develop fast. Never compare them. There's a biological age. There is an age of how they are at that moment. Some kids they grow earlier and they mature earlier, and you can't compare kids always. And I feel that the people who peak later in life are better than the ones who peak early in life.
Jesse, very nicely said. Great tips there. And some words of caution, because there are also some parents out there who are, expecting a lot from the kids. What would your advice be to them?
I think if some parents they expect a kid to become like a Tiger Woods or to become and I don't know, whatever the motives are there, but I think the kid must learn to have fun. The most important thing. If I had to earn money, probably I would do more in a job, right, elsewhere. So, and then I think maybe a business would do more than what a golf, unless you get to the very top at golf. So that's not the aim in golf. The aim in golf is that it's a game. We must love to play the game. We must enjoy that. And if somebody gets good, after all, how many percent of kids who are playing are going to get good? Probably some percent of the total population are going to become really good at it. You can't expect every kid to become like that. So you have to first instill them that you are enjoying this. You're getting away from because I think earlier there were games in schools, and now there are very few schools which do have games. And this is one of the sports which a lot of kids are playing because it's like it suits today's lifestyle. It's individualistic. You don't have to have a team. You can play yourself, and it's something which you enjoy. So it's something which is very different. And I think the first thing the parent must see is that child having fun or not. And that's, I know it's said so many times, but I think it's the most important thing, because I see a Shubhankar, I see a Karan Kocher, I see a lot of these kids, a lot of people who I've seen from the time when they were very young, Ajitesh, they're having fun out on the golf course. It's not monotonous for them. And I think that's the only way you'll play good golf.
Excellent. I think it's a really, really good point there, Jesse. Thanks for saying it. Shubhankar, coming to you. There are a couple of questions coming up. I'm going to ask them in a minute, but just first one is, any future plans? Any is the wrong word actually. What are your future plans?
Future plans for now. First of all, I hope we get through this tough time. Just a tough time for the whole world. So everything's on a standstill. You don't really know what's going to happen with the world tours, and hopefully it opens up quickly and I can get back to the European tour. Everything in Europe gets settled. My long-term goals would definitely be to get to the PGA Tour. That's where I've always wanted to play, to contend in the majors. And, I've also gotten to a point where I'm not really thinking about my goals as much. I just want to, like I said, I just want to fall in love with the process of getting better and not really concentrate on the end result that I want. Uh, I've just realized this, after playing on the highest level for the past year or two, that you just have to enjoy the process and just let it be, just let it happen. You can't control anything in golf. All you can control is your emotion, and you give your 100% and let things happen, and you give your best and you enjoy doing that and enjoy being on tour and enjoy performing and shooting those 5 6 unders 7 unders and just enjoy playing golf basically. And that's what I want to do. I just want to enjoy uh, getting better and fall in love with the process of getting better and be the best that I can be. And I know if I can get to a stage where I know I've given my 100% and I'm the best that I can be, I will definitely get to where I want to get and contend with the best players in the world.
Shubhankar, in just the last few seconds and minutes, you've said such wonderful things, because there's some great knowledge in that itself. And I hope the kids who are listening really imbibe that. I'm just going to get to a few questions which are coming up on the chat. So one of them is that, in this period, how have you been keeping utilizing your time better?
I've been meditating a lot. Been meditating, been working out. There's not much place to practice, so I just chip in my front yard whenever I get some time. But I'm also kind of spending this time with my family. I've not really spent too much time with them in the past few years. I've always been traveling, so I've been doing that a lot, and working out and trying to keep my nutrition going. Not Like I said, I'm not used to being at home as much, and I have always missed my mom's cooking whenever I'm on tour. So I'm enjoying that as much as possible. To stay sharp, I'm meditating and working out.
Excellent. Tell me, there's a question here that would college golf help somebody else who wants to look at golf as a pro career? I mean, did you ever think of it yourself when you were growing up?
It's a
In the
good
US?
option, but
Yeah.
yes, it's a good option. But for me, I never really wanted to go to the US to do college golf. I turned pro pretty early. That was obviously one of the reasons I couldn't go. But it was never. I never like our family never thought of that. That was never an option. I could have gone. I could have gotten a good scholarship. I had won the All India and I was one of the best in India at that time. But I just wanted to set the bar higher for myself to turn pro, because at the end of the day, the nature of the sport is professional. That's where you want to get to. That's where you want to perform your best and play your best golf. And for me, I thought I'd learn a lot more by turning professional and starting out at the PGTI than actually going and playing college golf, because it sounds very exciting. It's nice, but the experience that I gained playing professional golf till the age of 21 uh, was so much. I don't think I would have learned as much playing college golf in America and coming back and turning pro, or even turning pro there. I mean, things could have been very different. So it is a good option if someone wants to take it up. But I think the route, if you want to turn professional, if you want to become the best that you want to be, and you want to play golf seriously, if you're coming from India, I would, if someone would come and ask me, I would tell them to take the route, the PGTI route, and what I have taken and what Anirban has taken and some of the best players from India have taken. I think that's a great route to get to the European Tour or the PGA.
It's interesting, Anirban echoed the same sentiments, and I think you also articulated it beautifully, because get to the next level, you have the ability to do it here, and why miss the opportunity? Without any negative to the college golf route, but there's a good opportunity here itself.
There's nothing negative. There's nothing
Yeah.
negative. So many players
Yeah.
have done that. Jeev did that as well. Jeev sir did that. He went to college. Shiv did that. So a lot of people have done that. So there's nothing wrong with it. But you just have to figure out what works best for you.
Absolutely. There's a question here that who are your good friends on the European tour?
Aaron is one of my best friends on tour. We roomed a lot last year. Gavin Green from Malaysia is a very good friend. So these two guys are the ones that I hang out with, and we go for dinners, and whenever we are together, we try and get in a game of ping pong or pool in the games room and in our hotels and stuff like that. So they would be my best friends. Asian tour, I have so many friends. Asia is like home, so all the Indians are there. It's like a huge party going for dinners every night after our rounds, because it's like 12, 13 of us who go for dinners together. So Asia is a lot of fun. But Europe, mostly these two guys. Obviously, I have other friends as well, but these two are my closest ones.
Excellent. Tell me anything other than meditation you're doing now to strengthen the mind?
Visualization. I think that meditation is a lot of things kind of come under it, and visualization is probably a branch of meditation as well. When you kind of think and visualize yourself being at a certain place, a certain time, and hitting that shot where you really need to hit that shot. And for me, something that I've been doing, and I would want to do it now for the next month or so till the time this lockdown ends, is just figure out how I was thinking when I was under pressure, when I was playing some of my best golf, and what I could have done better, because I'm sure I'll be in that position again in the future. And just figure out how the mind works and how the body kind of follows, and how there is a reaction inside you that makes you hit a certain shot in a certain way, and not the way you would want it to. So it's just all of that is visualization. So for me, I do that a lot, going into the past, trying to imagine myself in the future, being at different places, be the Open Championship or the Masters or any of the majors. So been doing that, and that really helps in clearing my mind and kind of getting some answers.
Excellent. I think it's another great drill right there. Jesse, we'll come towards closing this session. There's been some phenomenal inputs from both of you. Any closing words, Jesse, from your side?
I think my work with Shubhankar has been what I find special about him is his intensity, his humility, his his ability to accept things the way they are, and not. Sometimes we have a fault in the swing, but not to consider it a fault and not say that I can't play well because I've got this thing happening. So he has the ability to get the job done, right? Whenever we are out on until he is satisfied with the practice, we don't leave the range. I mean, and I leave it to him, and I don't say let's go. I wait for him to say, yeah, I think I got it. I think for every player in their work, there is that aha moment. That when you say I got it, and it doesn't happen every day. It happens sometimes when you suddenly find you click with something and you got it. And I think that's something with Shubhankar. He's open, and he comes on the range and he says, no, I'm not yet happy. You have to come back tomorrow morning and we go to still work on this. And so he's very real about things. And of course, like I said, as a person, he's very humble. He's great to be with. And the trust he has with me, it's been a great sort of team job we've had. And but in the end, when it's under the gun, the player is the one who does it all. And I think that's credit to him because he's been able to, on bad days, grind it out, and it doesn't change the way he behaves at all.
Beautiful. That's such a wonderful thing to hear. Shubhankar, any closing words from your side?
Just thank you so much for having me, sir. I think it was a very informative talk for, I guess, for all the people watching it, and even for me. I mean, it's always good to hear Jesse sir talk about stuff, and it really, I've been listening to him for the past 15 years, and it's always nice to listen to him and his views on different stuff. So thank you so much for having us, and I hope everyone enjoyed it and got a few pointers out of this talk.
Thank you so much, Shubhankar. Jesse, thank you so much. I mean, it's been educative. There's so much of value in this conversation. I've been using this term very often, mining for gold. I think everything that you shared had a lot of gold in it. And for all those who've been listening, the parents, the kids, the players, I think there's a lot that they can take back and start working with. Some of the things that come on very, very clearly is the importance of being able to enjoy yourself, playing the game, and having fun in the way. Rest everything will start happening by doing the right thing. So thank you all once again. Wonderful. Shubhankar, we wish you the very best. Hope to see you be the world #1 very, very soon. And Jesse, best to you. Keep on producing these kind of world-class players. It's wonderful to see so many of them enjoying the sport and making India proud. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Digraj. Thank you
for having us. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.